Today, we're going to dive into a really important topic, the journey veterans take when they transition back to civilian life. And look, this isn't just about finding a job, it's about rebuilding an entire identity. We'll be looking at some new research that really shines a light on the challenges and, even better, the solutions. This line, it hits on a silent truth for so many people. The challenges of leaving the super-structured collective world of the military for the ambiguity of civilian life, they're often huge and something most of us just don't see. It's a culture shock that's way deeper than just hanging up a uniform. And here's what makes the work we're talking about today so powerful. It's led by Dr. Ronnie A. Rodas, a U.S. Army combat veteran who didn't just study this topic from a distance, he lived it. His own difficult experiences getting out of the Army are the very foundation of this entire investigation, which gives us a perspective that's both incredibly well-researched and deeply human. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to walk through what Dr. Rodas found to really understand the core of the problem and then the path forward. So what's really at the heart of the issue here? Well, just imagine going from an environment where your role, your mission, your entire support network are crystal clear, to a world that feels completely decentralized and, frankly, individualistic. The rules are different, the language is different, and that powerful sense of belonging can feel like it's just gone. To really get why this shift is so tough, the research uses a few key frameworks to explain the experience. Let's take a look at a couple of them. Okay, so first, there's this idea called social identity theory. In the military, who you are is so deeply tied to your unit, your branch, the group. You're a soldier, a sailor, a Marine. But in the civilian world, those roles get really fuzzy, and that clash can create this profound sense of detachment, like you just don't quite fit in anywhere. Next is something called person-environments fit. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a puzzle. A veteran has this incredible set of skills, values, and experiences. The big question is, does their new civilian job and its culture actually match all of that? Does that puzzle piece fit? And it's pretty obvious what happens when that fit is wrong, right? When there's a mismatch, the consequences are predictable. It leads straight to job dissatisfaction and veterans leaving their new jobs way too early. So this isn't about a lack of skills, it's all about a lack of fit. And all of this brings us to one of the most surprising and important findings in this research, something we can call the underemployment puzzle. Now, when we talk about veterans and jobs, our minds usually go straight to unemployment. But get this, the data shows that's not actually the biggest threat they're facing out there in the job market. It's underemployment. See, just having a job isn't the same as having the right job. So many veterans find work, but it's work that completely underutilizes their incredible skills, their leadership experience, or their education. And what's really fascinating here is how this breaks down what underemployment actually feels like for a veteran. They report feeling it in 4 main ways. Their leadership abilities are totally underused. Their specific technical skills don't match the job. They feel overqualified for the role based on their education. And, pretty simply, they're underpaid for what they bring to the table. So, you might be asking, well, why does this happen? A big part of the answer is this huge gap between policy on paper and reality on the ground. See, on paper, there are fantastic programs to help service members get civilian credentials. But in the real world, whether a soldier can actually use something like tuition assistance or SkillBridge often just comes down to if their commander supports it and what their unit's mission schedule looks like. And this table just lays it out so clearly, that culture clash we've been talking about. Military leadership runs on high clarity. It's driven by standard operating procedures. Civilian workplaces, they're often way more ambiguous, more decentralized. For a vet who is used to having a very clear mission, trying to navigate these looser rules and norms can be a massive source of frustration and misfit. But this research doesn't just diagnose the problem, and that's the best part. So let's switch gears and talk about the solutions, because it also lays out a really clear roadmap with real-world fixes. The big takeaway from all the recommendations is this: a successful transition is a shared responsibility. It absolutely does not fall only on the veterans' shoulders. The military, employers, and the veterans themselves, everybody has a critical role to play here. So for the Department of Defense, the changes are pretty systemic. Things like embedding education goals right into formal counseling to make it normal, expanding awesome programs like SkillBridge that we know work, and creating clear standard paths from a military job specialty directly to a civilian license. And for employers, The advice is super practical. Start hiring based on proven skills, not just keywords on a resume. Create onboarding programs that are actually ready for veterans that explain the culture. And this is a big one. Do the work to translate military experience in your own job descriptions so veterans can actually see themselves in the roles you're trying to fill. And finally, for service members themselves, the research provides a clear, actionable game plan. Start planning your exit as early as 18 months out. Use the programs you have to get a civilian credential before you leave. Get some real-world experience with an internship, and be really strategic about how you use all the transition resources that are available to you. So let's just pull this all together. If there's one thing to remember, it's that core message of shared ownership. When a veteran's transition doesn't go smoothly, it's not a personal failure. It's a systemic one that we all have a part in helping to fix. And that leaves all of us with a pretty big central question, doesn't it? This isn't just about policy or HR practices, it's about a cultural commitment. How can we, as a society, get better at truly recognizing the immense value of military service, and then actively help translate that service into real civilian success? That's the challenge this research leaves us with.